Hi, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for our first webinar of the year as part of the Leading Rheumatology, a volunteer development program of the ACR, ARP, and the Rheumatology Research Foundation. Today's webinar will be focused on volunteer nominations. My name is Stephanie Graham. I'm the Senior Director of Governance for the ACR, and I will be your staff host for the session. We are thrilled to have you here as we walk through the volunteer nominations process from both the member and the nominations committee members' perspectives. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items to cover for you. Video, audio, and chat have been disabled for our attendees to ensure a smooth experience for everyone. To ensure that you can see the faculty presenting during the webinar, you can go to the top of your screen and click View, and then select Hide Non-Video Participants. I'll give you a second to do that if you want to do so. And then also I wanted to remind everyone that because we have chat disabled, if you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them through the Q&A app in the Zoom webinar. Our staff will be monitoring for any questions about audio or video issues you may have, and faculty will also be keeping an eye on the chat for questions you may have related to the content in advance of our QA session. We will hold all questions until the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. The webinar is being recorded this evening, and we will be providing this to everyone who registered within about the next 1 to 2 weeks. The recording will also be made available on the Volunteer Opportunities webpage at rheumatology.org. We hope this webinar provides you with valuable insights and encourages you to actively participate in this upcoming nominations cycle. We want you to volunteer for the ACR, the ARP, and the Foundation, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Deborah Diet-Desir, Chair of ACR Nominations and one of the hosts of our webinar this evening. Thank you, Dr. Desir.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the American College of Rheumatology Volunteer Nominations Information Session webinar. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. I'm Deborah Diet-Desir, Chair of the Nominations Committee and immediate past president of the ACR. I am joined tonight by my two esteemed colleagues, Mike Holers and Aileen Ledenham. Additionally, Kanika Manga will be joining us for the Q&A portion of the session. Please feel free to submit your questions to the Q&A throughout the webinar. We are excited to be here with you to discuss the ACR's volunteer opportunities and the nomination process. Serving within ACR is an incredibly rewarding experience, and we're here to provide insight into how you can get involved. We're looking forward to a great discussion and appreciate your engagement in this important process. Let's get started. Today's session will cover key aspects of the ACR, ARP, and our Foundation's nomination process, including an overview of the nomination process and what to expect, guidance on writing strong letters of recommendation to support nominees, tips for crafting compelling nominations responses and personal statements, advice on creating a strong application video for board and officer positions, best practices for a successful nominations application to improve your chances, along with opportunities for involvement in subcommittees, short-term volunteering, and leadership roles through Leading Rheumatology. We will conclude with a wrap-up to summarize key takeaways, followed by a Q&A session. I'd like to emphasize that there are many volunteer opportunities on subcommittees and many short-term volunteering opportunities across the college. However, our event this evening will focus on standing committees and board opportunities. We're looking forward to an engaging and informative discussion. The ACR volunteer nominations process provides an opportunity for members to take on leadership roles and contribute to the advancement of rheumatology. This slide shows the general timeline and key steps in the process. On April 1, volunteer nominations open. Opportunities are available for ACR, ARP, and our foundation. Members can apply for positions for themselves or nominate colleagues for leadership roles. June 1st, nominations close. All nominations materials, including personal statements, recommendation letters, and application videos, if applicable, must be submitted by this deadline. In August, nominations will be formally reviewed and sent to the Board of Directors for approval. This is at the Board of Directors meetings for both the ACR and our foundation. In October and November, generally November, but this year in October, as convergence will be taking place in October, final selection and confirmation occurs at the annual business meeting. There are many ways to get involved. You can apply for yourself or nominate others who are qualified and interested in contributing to ACR's leadership and volunteer opportunities. And ensure your application highlights leadership, experience, commitment to ACR's mission, and a clear vision for your role. Some key application components to consider are a compelling personal statement, clearly articulate your experience and vision. Strong letters of recommendation are important. These provide support from respected colleagues. Application videos for board and other positions will showcase your leadership skills and passion for serving ACR. Further information can be found at rheumatology.org/volunteer-opportunities and access this site for detailed information, eligibility criteria, and nomination resources. And now I would like to hand things over to Mike, who will talk a little bit about foundation eligibility and criteria.
Yes, thank you, Deborah. I'm Michael Holers. I am chair of our foundation's Leadership Development Council, which is the mechanism whereby we handle nominations for our foundation positions. This slide will lay out some of our ACR and foundation eligibility criteria, but it's, I think, important to emphasize that each one of the positions that will be available, each board and committee or council position requires distinct skill sets. So nominees should really spend an amount of time sufficient to understand those roles before applying and make sure that their comments during the application process are appropriate to the understanding of the roles and responsibilities. That includes some positions for which there may be restrictions based on employment, such as with insurance companies, or sometimes whether it's a lay individual or not. So I want to emphasize that individuals should spend sufficient time to really understand the roles for which they are applying. As part of the process also, you will be asked to address a number of questions. These will vary from position to position and organization to organization, but in general, you should be ready to respond to questions that address your abilities and attributes that you would bring to the board and or a specific committee or council that you are selecting. You should explain what interests you about serving on the board and or committee you're selected. If you volunteered previously for ACR Foundation or ARP, you would be asked to list the contributions that you made specifically for that particular role. You may be asked to describe any other relevant experience that you believe would be beneficial to volunteering with the college in any of these positions. And then at the end, do you feel there are any other pieces of information that the nominations committees would need to know considering your nomination? And finally, you may be asked if you are a current RISE user. I'll now turn it over to Aileen, who will go through the ARP nominations application questions.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Aileen Lettingham. I am the chairperson for the ARP Nominations and Appointments Committee. Tonight, you might notice that the process for the college, which is reflecting the ACR, the ARP, and our foundation, has intentionally been structured to be very similar. This slide illustrates the sample questions for the ARP secretary position. The secretary role is the first leadership step towards becoming the ARP president. So this is a very high level application, very similar to an application for the board of directors on the foundation and the ACR. A sample question for a standing committee position would be, For example, what attributes and abilities will you bring to the committee you selected? And I'll give you a second to read through these examples for a secretary position, and then we'll pass it on to Deborah. Okay, Deborah, ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Aileen. As we continue, I'd like to direct your attention to the questions on this slide. These are examples of questions we will be using this year in the nomination process. They are designed to help us understand your goals for ACR now and how you envision contributing to ACR's future. The full list of questions is available on the ACR website, so we recommend reviewing them thoroughly as you prepare your nomination materials. We will now discuss let me give you a minute to just view this slide. Again, these are available on the website. We will now move on to discuss some key strategies for crafting strong responses, but if you have any specific questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A part of the Zoom. You're muted, Mike. You're muted.
I would next go through the review and selection process, but I would really emphasize that you should read Kanika Manga's really fascinating 2024 October edition of The Rheumatologist. She wrote a beautiful article that lays out her experience participating in the nominations process. And I would really emphasize that it has tremendous insights. We'll hear from her later in this discussion also. But the selection process, we've talked a little bit about the due dates. In April and May, the nominations committee members, shown on this slide, meet with the chairs and staff liaisons for each standing committee to discuss the committee charge, roles, responsibilities, and competencies. So that really is a process intended to link individuals from the nominating committees more directly with the needs of the particular committees or councils with which they're working. On June 1, the applications close and the governance staff of the college compile the applications received and assign those to members of the nominating committee. And in June and July, the initial recommendations for proposed appointments are put into our system called Open Water by members of the committees, and everyone gets to see all of the nominations committees reviews and also the applications for various positions. In late July, the nominations committees will meet separately, but then come together concurrently. And they are co-located with the idea that individuals may apply across the organization. And we want to make sure that we're able to see that and also to place individuals in the most appropriate positions. In mid to late August, the chairs of the nominating committees present the recommendations to the various boards of the ARP, ACR, and our foundation for approval. And then in October and November, these approved slates of officers and board directors is presented and ratified during the ACR business meeting at Convergence. So that is the basic process. There are certainly a number of aspects of this process which are extremely important, and those include tips for writing strong nominations letters of recommendation. So as a division head, I'm very used to writing letters of recommendation. But if you're not, these are some, I think, tips that are quite helpful. The first thing you want to do is introduce yourself to the individuals who are reading your nominating letter, and also let them know how you know the nominee. The focus should be on a nominee's relevant achievements with specific examples of the activities that demonstrate appropriate knowledge, skills, and experience. And for sure, you want to align everything that you're saying with the mission of the college, but also with the specific position for which this individual is being nominated. So that requires that you, in addition to the nominees, spend some time looking at the website to understand what position and what it goes on in the particular committee or council. And then the conclusion is a clear endorsement and a recount of why they're excellent choices for that position. The next slide will lay out, and Aileen will present tips for nominating application questions and writing personal statements. So Aileen, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So tips for answering nominations, application questions, and writing a strong personal statement. The nominations application questions are designed to help committee members evaluate your qualifications and fit for the volunteer position. A written personal statement is an essential component to the application where you have an opportunity to express your motivations, your qualifications, and passion for the volunteer position. The next 3 slides will highlight some points for you to consider. Okay, so the first bullet point, understand the questions, seems obvious. However, you might have a slight doubt about the meaning, excuse me, and you are welcome to reach out to the ACR. It would be the ACR nominations at rheumatology.org. A staff person will be happy to help you, and you will have that email address presented at the end of this session, or the end of the session, or emailed to you. I forget exactly how that process will be. The focus for the nomination questions is to be concise. Answer is the best way to go. And I think being focused and concise is the biggest challenge for most people because it takes many revisions. And it reminds me of a saying, write without fear and edit without mercy. Rethought the answer to the questions and then go back and revise again and again and again. So tips for responding to nominations questions, what to avoid. For those of you who remember with, say, the non-positive language, you don't want to ramble. You would like to provide relevant information. Do not provide irrelevant information. Try to avoid generalities. You would really be best off using specific examples. Do not leave answers unquestioned. Do not leave questions unanswered or incomplete. And please don't forget to provide examples. The best for personal statements to contain new information that's not already on your CV or on your resume. You want to be authentic. You want to reflect your true self. Stick to the key points on why you are the best fit for the position. Be focused. Share your meaningful insights consistently. Share concrete examples versus general statements, demonstrating your achievements and character. Last and most important, proofread. Have somebody else proofread. Use ChatGPT. Have somebody else have a set of eyes before you submit your application. And I think we're going to have Deborah speak again with regards to tips for creating the application video.
Thank you, Mike and Aileen, for that comprehensive and extremely helpful summary of applications. And moving forward, let's talk about the application video. The application video is a relatively new requirement in the nomination process. The video is now required for the following positions: ACR Officer and Board, ARP Officer, and Foundation Vice President and Board. Given that this is a new component, or relatively new component, we've been using it for 2 or 3 years now, we want to share some key tips to help you create a compelling and effective video. First and foremost, keep it concise and focused. Your video should be clear, professional, and to the point. Aim for 2 to 3 minutes to highlight your vision, leadership experience, and what you bring to the role. And I would like to emphasize that your leadership experience is not limited to your leadership experience within the college. If you have leadership roles in any other aspect of your life, feel free to share them with us. Secondly, showcase your passion and commitment. Speak confidently about why ACR's mission excites you and how your leadership can help advance the organization's goals. Next, address key questions. Using the application prompts as a guide, let us know what unique skills you bring to the table. What is your vision for the ACR? How do you use the ACR? How do you see the ACR evolving in coming years? Also, ensure good video and audio quality. Ever since COVID, we've all become very adept at being on video, but just a couple of tips. Find a quiet, well-lit space with minimal background distractions. Use a stable camera setup and speak clearly. Lastly, be authentic and personable. The selection committee wants to get a sense of who you are as a leader, so let your personality and enthusiasm shine through in your video. View the application video as a great opportunity to bring your story and leadership vision to life. So take the time to plan, rehearse, and deliver a strong message. As you prepare your nomination materials, here are some best practices to ensure a strong and competitive application. First, as this has been mentioned previously in this webinar, review and proofread before submitting. Carefully check your responses for clarity, completeness, and grammatical accuracy. Ensure that your answers align with ACR's mission and highlight your qualifications effectively. Another key point, submit your nominations early. This is a great way to avoid last-minute submissions to prevent we want to avoid last-minute submissions to prevent technical issues or rushed applications. Giving yourself extra time allows for thoughtful revisions and stronger recommendations. Also, be strategic with multiple nominations. If you are nominating multiple candidates, select different committees or roles to increase their chances of being chosen. In other words, if you are nominating 6 people, try not to nominate all 6 of them for the same committee or the same role. If you are self-nominating, you may apply for up to 3 different volunteer opportunities. We'd like you to be open to various possibilities that match your skills and interests. So if you're nominating yourself, don't just go room pack, room pack, room pack. Of course, you can do that, but it's probably beneficial to choose different roles. Lastly, be open to additional opportunities. There is a box on the application form that indicates your willingness to be considered for positions beyond the one that you have checked. The reason why we have this box on the form is that there may be openings on committees that align with your expertise, even if you didn't initially select them. Being flexible increases your chances of securing a meaningful role at the college. By following these best practices, you'll set yourself up for a strong and well-prepared application that enhances your chances of being selected to a leadership role within ACR. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Aileen and Mike.
I'm going to be speaking about the subcommittees and short-term volunteer opportunities, and then Mike will be speaking about the leading rheumatology volunteer development.
Aileen, we can't hear you very well. I just want you to make sure that there you go.
Okay. Thank you, Deborah. I'm going to be speaking about the subcommittees, short-term volunteering opportunities, and then Mike will be speaking about the leading rheumatology and volunteer development. All right, so the subcommittee and short-term volunteering opportunities. The processes that we have been discussing thus far this evening pertains to the standing committees and the board of directors by and large. Other volunteer opportunities exist with subcommittees and short-term projects. The subcommittee projects are generated by standing committees, with most opportunities presenting themselves in the summertime. The needs of the subcommittee, passion and intention of volunteer are important, as well as any knowledge, skills, and previous experiences you will bring to the work of the subcommittee. These subcommittee and short-term volunteering opportunities is important for the college to stay nimble. So when these committees start coming up with some really great ideas and we need some extra help to sort of get these ideas moving forward. And that's how come they come in random order throughout the year. So even though our formal committee and board of directors application begins April 1st and ends June 1st, there are opportunities throughout the year to volunteer for the college. And with that, we are going to be opening a new website specifically for volunteering and being able to be informed of what opportunities are coming around the corner. And I will pass it on to Mike.
Thanks, Aileen. So this first session tonight is just the beginning of our new volunteer development program that goes by the name of Leading Rheumatology. You'll see here a number of additional planned programming events that will be put together under this umbrella, and they start on April 22nd, entitled Engaging the Unengaged, with a focus on effective, motivational, and inclusive committee leadership. So this is not only volunteer development, but also helping individuals understand how our college works and how we most effectively interact with our peers during these types of experiences. The next one in June will discuss resilient leadership, and that is how to mitigate leadership burnout, especially, and there will be a number of other topics as part of that. Again, to help individuals who are interested understand the philosophy and also how we all work together to keep ourselves motivated in these very important positions. In August, there'll be 2 events on agile volunteer leadership, talking about collaboration, coordination, and communication, 3 of the key attributes that we think are extremely important. Talking about setting goals and objectives for your roles and committees and councils, and developing business and action plans. And this is a particularly important and I think informative set of discussions, because much of the work that we do is very business oriented, and it's very useful for individuals to understand how we undertake those activities. So with that, I'll turn it back to Deborah to move us toward a close here. But again, I just want to personally invite individuals who are interested to continue to learn about it. And if you're interested, please reach out. Deborah, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Aileen. So in summary, the American College of Rheumatology, the Association of Rheumatology Professionals, and the Rheumatology Research Foundation offer a variety of volunteer leadership opportunities each year. The nominations process provides members with the chance to apply for key leadership roles or nominate colleagues who are dedicated to advancing the mission of these organizations. The volunteer nominations open on April 1 and close on June 1, giving applicants a 2-month window to prepare and submit their materials. Positions are available across multiple levels of leadership, including officer roles, board positions, standing committees, and councils. Members are encouraged to apply early, carefully craft their applications, and remain open to different opportunities within the college. Additionally, checking the option to be considered for roles beyond the one selected can increase the chances of securing a meaningful leadership position. By participating in the nominations process, members contribute to the strength and future of the ACR, the ARP, and our foundation. ensuring that rheumatology continues to thrive under dedicated and capable leadership. Once again, for more details, visit rheumatology.org/volunteer-opportunities. If you need additional assistance with the nominations process or volunteering opportunities, or if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We can be reached at acrnominations@rheumatology.org. And brand new this year, we encourage you to join our inaugural nominations office hours with Deborah and Stephanie. Deborah being me and Stephanie being the vice president for governance. Stephanie Graham being the vice president for governance. This will be a great opportunity to ask questions and gain insights into the process. Nomination office hours are Monday, March 31st, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Wednesday, April 9th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We look forward to assisting you and helping you navigate the nominations process. Before we move into our Q&A session, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Kanika Manga, who is joining us to help answer your questions. Kanika has been actively involved in ACR leadership and brings valuable insights into the nomination process. Her experience and perspective will be incredibly helpful as we navigate your questions here tonight. Kanika, thank you for being here. I'd love to give you the floor to say a few words before we open up the Q&A.
Thank you, Deborah. Hello, everyone. My name is Kanika Manga. I'm a rheumatologist based in Houston. So my journey with the ACR began in 2019 during my fellowship. And over the past 7 years, I've had the privilege of volunteering in a variety of roles, most recently as a part of the nominations committee. Volunteering with the ACR has been incredibly fulfilling and enriching. Along the way, I've grown, I've found my voice, and most importantly, met some truly amazing people, including the fantastic ACR staff. I'm happy to be here today and would be glad to answer any questions you might have. There truly is a place for everyone, so I really hope you consider volunteering for the ACR. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanika. And you've reminded me, before we move to the question and answers, I would like to emphasize nothing we do, including this webinar tonight, would have been possible without the amazing, phenomenal ACR staff. So let's dive into your questions. We're going to open it up. So I don't understand the technology behind that, but someone is going to allow our participants into the room so that they can ask questions and we can have an exchange of ideas. And Jillian, I think you're on that, right? So if you have a question, if you could please just use the raise hand feature, which should be functional. And if not, there's a couple of questions in the Q&A that I can lead us off with. All right, since everyone's shy tonight, we'll start with the first question in the Q&A, which is, if I was appointed to a position last year for a 2 to 3 year term, can I apply again this year if I wasn't placed on my preferred committee? And I think I'm going to throw that one out to Stephanie.
One question. Sorry, I was handling a technology thing. Repeat the question again.
The first question in the Q&A is, if I was appointed to a position last year for a 2 to 3 year term, can I apply again this year if I wasn't placed on my preferred committee? So this is from a person who's on a committee. It was not their preferred committee.
Sure.
They have not completed their term. Can they reapply this year for a different committee?
So this is an option, but we really encourage people to fulfill their full term. And I will let Kanika respond and Mike respond and Aileen also, and anybody else that's staff on the call. But there are lots of opportunities in the ACR, the ARP, and the foundation. And I do believe strongly that the committee places you in a fantastic position thinking through all of the opportunities that you have out there, and they've put you in that spot for a good reason. And you have lots to learn from any committee or subcommittee that you happen to be placed on. So I would encourage you to quote unquote tough it out, but learn from the experience that you've been placed in, and then resubmit an application after your term is completely done.
I would summarize that as we would absolutely love for you to complete your term and then submit a new application when your term is up. And then
Can I add something to that?
absolutely.
Yeah, I just would emphasize the importance of that, because I cannot tell you the number of times I've heard from individuals who were initially a bit disappointed or not really understanding why they ended up in a specific committee role, and it after a year or two, they come back and tell me that now they understand, because they learned a lot about not only that particular committee, but they learned a lot about how the ACR and our foundation and the ARP function, but also they learned a lot about how to apply for positions, and really think that they've made a major role. I would also emphasize, and this is the advice I give to everyone who joins a committee or council, which is find something that you are most passionate about and become the expert in that, because that is by far the best way to advance in our organizations, because you want to stand out. This is like any other role that you're in your professional career. You want to become the go-to person, and then if you are the go-to person, then you get to go. So that's my advice.
So thank you so much, Mike, and an excellent summary. There's a question in here that's directed to Dr. Manga, and it says, "Hi, thanks for holding this webinar. I have a question for everyone, but perhaps Dr. Manga could answer best. What positions did you get involved with during fellowship, and what opportunities would you encourage fellows to look into apply for?"
Thank you so much for the excellent question. I'm happy to help. So I discovered volunteering with the ACR through the Advocacy 101 program, which I highly recommend to sign up for. It helped me learn how to be an advocate for our field, meet different colleagues and peers, and it was a great way to network with other fellows around the country. And then during that process, I realized that I was very passionate about communications and marketing. So I applied to be on that committee, which was a wonderful learning experience, and also expanded my knowledge of ACR as a whole, and kind of, all the different aspects involving patient education, different mediums like that. And I love social media, so I thought it was a really great pathway as a fellow to get involved and figure out what my voice is and where I wanted to go next.
Thank you very much, Kanika. And people, you can raise your hand and ask us the questions directly also, but I'll continue to read them from the Q&A. And so if I applied last year and was not selected, can I apply again this year? I'll take that one. The answer is yes, and there are two pathways to do so. One is you let us know directly that you want to roll over your application from last year, and that happens almost automatically. Or two, you can submit a new application, especially if things have changed in your professional career or in your life. Anybody else want to add to that?
I would say that I highly recommend it. I really recommend applying again. I think if you, don't get in the first time, you should definitely try again, because whenever we're at the nominations meeting, we do look for applicants that have applied multiple times or didn't get placed the previous year. So I really think that, that applying again shows a lot of dedication, and it's really, exciting to see that application again in the future.
Thank you.
So this is Mike. Maybe I'll add a bit of insight in that it's important to realize that there's a big aspect of timing in this whole process, and that many positions on the board and in committees and councils really are ones where individuals with specific types of backgrounds are predominantly placed. And what happens not infrequently is that you have someone who is really great for the position, but unfortunately, there's someone already there who has that particular skill set. So, as the nominating committee functions, what you're trying to do is match skills with positions. So, you may just get caught up, and I've seen this happen many times. You just get caught up in a timing issue so that it's not that that there's not an interest in you, it's that there's not a position at that particular time. So you can find out more about that specific point through staff, and feel free to reach out to the chairs of the committee or council. We're like normal people. So, we can certainly get back and discuss how the process has gone and what is going on in the future, and give you some advice with regards to how best to find your voice, as Kanika so nicely said.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you again, Kanika. I personally am really excited to see questions from fellows in training, and we have another one. Can I apply as a fellow in training to multiple committees? And what will help me boost my application? So I think that there are several people on our panel who can weigh in on this one. Who would like to start? Stephanie. But the first part of that question is, can I apply as a fellow in training to multiple committees?
So for fellows in training, they have an opportunity. We have a position on all of the ACR committees. I will let Janelle chime in, or Aileen chime in, and Mike chime in, or Heather on the foundation and the ARP, but we do have fit positions on all of the ACR standing committees, and we would love for you to apply for multiple options, for opportunities for you to participate. We love that early career voice and welcome you at the table for certain.
And I would echo that. Since starting as a fellow, I never felt like I was the fellow or the fit member. I felt like my voice was always heard and amplified. And I found so many mentors through that process. And actually, the year I was a fellow or a fit member of the Communications and Marketing Committee, they actually asked me to serve as a Rheumatic Disease Awareness Month spokesperson for the whole campaign. So I say, as a fellow, I definitely encourage you to try and apply to any committee that might interest you, and even some that maybe you don't know if they interest you, because I think there's something to learn from each committee and from each individual on the committee.
Thank you.
I would just say also, fits are highly regarded, and there are a number of our leaders now in the ACR, in the executive committee, who started as fellows in training on various positions. And as I indicated before, they stood out, as Kanika has done, and they are destined for greatness, so to speak.
And so, thank you very much. And I know an additional question. I have an, yeah?
I think Jillian might have wanted to add something additional.
I was just gonna add that fit terms on the ACR standing committees are actually only for 1 year. So during your fellowship, you are able to experience multiple committees so that you see where you best fit to when you go to apply for a full term after your fellowship. You know what best suits your interest and what will help you most as a rheumatologist and where you want to be. So that is the term limits for fits, is just 1 year. So you guys have the opportunity to dive deeper into everything before you have a full term.
And can I just add to that?
Thank
That means,
you, Jillian. That was very helpful. Go ahead, Aileen.
that means the fits can apply every year. Okay, because your term is 1 year, you need to apply the next year.
Absolutely.
And check with your friends and your fellows to help you with that. So please apply every year. And you'll have at least 3 choices per application for different committees that might be of interest to you.
And get your fellows to apply also, because we've got to put a fit on every committee. And so another question I am an ARP member. Where can I serve? Aileen, you're on.
What a great question. You can serve on ARP committees, you can serve on ACR committees, you can serve on foundation committees. We are intertwined all over the college. Different committees will have different requirements, but you could even apply for the board of directors on the ACR. So I hope that answers the question. There's no stopping you from applying. You wouldn't apply for a fit position and you wouldn't apply for a student position unless you were a student. But by and large, be happy and apply.
Okay. And we have there's one more question in the chat. If you apply for something and the committee feels you could support a different one from the one you applied for, how does that process work?
I could
So,
speak to that with the ARP. How the process works is we go through all the applications and we look at all the various people that are on the committee and what gaps we have for this upcoming year and try and fill those gaps. And sometimes your application may not be the best fill for that gap. But we think you'd be outstanding or another committee would be of interest to you because of the information that you provide us on your application. And what will happen is if we think that that's the case, we'll reach out to you and we'll have a conversation and we will say that, look, we understand that you applied for this, this, and this, but we would really like to offer you this other position for various reasons that we have seen on your application. So I can say with 100% certainty, if you decide that you're not interested in that committee, you are under no obligation of saying yes. You don't have to say yes. You could say no. But keep in your mind that qualified people on these nominations committee think that you would be a good fit for this committee that they're asking you to be part of. And even though you may not see it as clear as day, usually over time you get the feel for why you do have a reason to be at that table.
and I think for the ACR, it's basically the same process. If we don't have a position for you on one of your three choices, then, or if we don't have a position for you that you've been nominated for, we look to see where we have a need and offer you that. No one's going to put you in committee jail and assign you to something that you don't want to be in. You don't have to accept, but we will certainly make the offer. And it would be wonderful if you could check the box. Anybody else have a comment about that process?
I think
That-
Kanika's article really, to me, I think one of the concerns that some people have, I think, is that these positions are all hardwired. And I think what Kanika really laid out is the process that's underway, the discussion, the things that Deborah, you have emphasized and Eileen was just emphasizing. There's a bit of horse trading as a part of this. There's a lot of interpersonal interactions, but the whole goal of this is to match the right person in the right position at the right time. And I think that all of us have applied for positions and not gotten them for the first time, or were put in other positions. And I think in the end, we all found it to be a really wonderful experience. Some of the best friends, best professional friends, and personal friends I have come through interactions on committees and councils. Some of the best lab collaborations I've had started off doing that. So there's a huge upside to this. So please, continue to work at it because you will find something that would be of interest for you.
And in addition, if you plan to be an ACR, ARP, or foundation volunteer for a number of years, or if you plan to stay in leadership, you will be on many committees because they're all term limited by 3 years, and for fits, as was mentioned, by 1 year. So what we're asking is to help us along and keep an open mind. And do we have any more questions? Does anybody want to just unmute themselves and ask a question before we wrap up?
While people are thinking of a question, may I just make one more comment with regards to ARP? That we welcome students to apply for some slots that we have on our team. So our students in ARP is sort of like a fit for the ACR, and it's a really great experience to learn in depth as a student, meet different people, just like echoing what Mike and Kanika and Deborah have said. So there is that opportunity. You don't have to be a registered professional. You could be a rheumatology interested person in training and come join the ARP for some volunteering opportunity.
So I'm going to ask Stephanie, Jillian, Anita, or Janelle, who are, oh, I see Heather's here too, our staff people on the webinar, if they have any comments they would like to make before we wrap up.
Already spoken a lot, so I'm going to let Janelle and
I'll jump
anybody
in,
else
yeah.
chime in. Yeah.
I will say that from a staff perspective, really the best part of our job is working with the volunteers. It's a lot of fun. They make it interesting and exciting, and I'm always so impressed with how much you all know. So you're very valued by the organization, but also by the staff. We really can't do this without you. Lord knows we are not subject matter experts. So we're here to help, and would love to have lots of new faces joining us each year for volunteering.
Jillian, Anita. Oh, Michelle's on the call too. Michelle, any comments, Michelle?
I'm sorry I joined late. I had a conflict a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to say, I heard earlier someone asking if they were not successful in being placed, should they keep applying? And it's so important that we reflect diverse perspectives across all our committees and all our volunteer opportunities. So please keep applying, and please also take advantage of short-term and subcommittee opportunities as well, so that you can become a part of the volunteer family until a committee slot is available.
Thank you, Michelle. I don't think I missed anybody else on I can't say enough. Don't let me get started about the ACR staff. Anybody else on our phenomenal staff. So I'm going to circle back to the panelists and see if anybody has any closing comments.
This is Mike. I would just say that I'm looking forward to having long discussions at our nominating committee meeting in July. So let's fill up the applications and make us work hard to find the right people for the right positions.
Well, if we have no further comments, last chance to the attendees, if you want to put anything else in the question and answer. I think we may have gotten something new. Okay. What about rheumatologists who have gone to industry? Do they have a place? Absolutely. There are some, that is governed by our policies. And so there are some committees who, and Stephanie, jump in if I'm misguided here. There are some committees where people who are employed by industry are not allowed to be members, but that entire policy is going to be looked at and reworked in the future so that it is clear and that we all understand the rationale behind it. And but we're not there yet. But so yes, I think there's a place for every rheumatologist and every rheumatology professional at the college. And by college, when I say college, I'm talking about ACR, ARP, and our foundation. So absolutely, there's a place. There may be some committees where people who are employed by industry cannot be members of that committee, but that will be clearly outlined on the website.
So I provided in the chat the volunteer eligibility document as it currently exists. As Dr. Desir mentioned, the Committee on Ethics and Conflict of Interest, one of our committees at the ACR, is actually reviewing this document currently because it needs some updating. We've significantly increased the number of standing committees that we have since the last iteration of this document was created. So they are reviewing that, revising it, updating it, as Dr. Desir said, but you can get a pretty good sense, at least as it currently stands for this upcoming nomination cycle, on if you are in commercial entity, if you're primarily employed by industry, or if you're primarily employed by insurance companies, where and how you can volunteer across the college. And if
So
anybody has additional questions, just let me know after the webinar.
I have the bad habit of repeating myself. I attributed the fact that I have 4 children and 4 grandchildren. So I'm going to say again that there is a place for every rheumatologist and every rheumatology professional at the college. So give us a chance to find your place.
I would completely agree with
Hope
that.
to help you find your place. Anybody else want to raise their hand? Or since we still have 3 minutes, if anybody else wants to raise their hand or put another question into the chat, into the answer. Did we answer them all? Right, we have no open questions in the Q&A. Anybody on the panel want to make a closing comment?
I would say if you're thinking about it or thinking about applying, I would just do it, because I can tell you through my journey over 7 years, I've learned so much, not just about our field, but also about who I am as a person and who I've developed and become as a leader. And I think we're lucky in rheumatology to have an organization that supports us. And I don't think that every subspecialty has that. I'm biased to say rheumatology is the best, but I really think ACR enhances that and really creates a family of all of us where we have each other to talk to and rely on and grow together with.
And Stephanie just put something in the chat that I wanted to emphasize, and it was to reach out to people early for letters of recommendation. As Mike alluded to, when you ask someone for a letter of recommendation, it's time consuming because that person who supports you wants to write the best letter possible. So you're asking people who are already really busy to take the time to write this letter. So ask early. So to give them time to do the job that I'm sure that they will. If you've asked them, they want to support you. So give them time to do a good job. Thank you, Stephanie, for putting that in the chat. All right. I would like to thank everyone for joining us. Thank our panelists. Thank my colleagues in this endeavor. Thank the staff, and thank everyone who joined us. And we hope to see you in office hours with Deborah and Stephanie.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye.